path. Okay, calculating the float time on non-critical and path, and I've went through how to find the critical path in the different video. If you don't understand how to do, please make sure you watch that. Okay, so now we want to find out how to calculate the float time on non-critical path. First and foremost, we need to understand how to calculate what a float time is. It is basically the latest start time of the next activity minus the early start time of the activity that you're in minus the activity time. So let's actually take an example. So this activity here, which is activity M, it is not on the critical path. The one highlighted is on the critical path. And also another way of knowing whether an activity is on the critical path is the latest start time and the early start time are equal. So this is your latest start time and this is your early start time. So if those two numbers are equal, that will be on the critical path. So no, because that's going to be 0 anyway. So this the float time will be 0 for all activities on the critical path. So this M, J, I, F, H, G, C, B, E are on non-critical path. So let's find out now. Let's start with M. So I want to find out the float time on M, on letter M. So, and this is what the formula says, the latest start time for activity M and minus the early start time for activity M. So this one here is the latest activity time. So latest start time minus the earliest start time. So that's going to be 25 minus 21 minus the activity time. So the time it takes activity M to be done is 2. So that's going to give me 4. 4 minus 2 is 2. So the float time on activity M is 2. So let's find out the float time on activity, let's say J. So the float time activity J. So again, J will be, so this one here is the latest start time. So this one here, the activity, it's in between these two boxes, J. So that's going to be 18. So 23, I should say. 23, which is the latest start time for that activity, which is the next activity. So just remember that the latest start time of the next activity minus the activity, which is done. Now we're looking at J, which is 18. So this number here, that's the early start time for X, minus 18. So let's find out float time for activity I. So the float time for activity I, so this is letter I. So the latest start time for activity I is down there, the next activity. So this is I is in between these two boxes. So, and so now here, that's going to be 18, which is the latest start time, minus, and the early start time, 14, minus the duration it takes for activity and I. So that's going to give me 18 minus 14 is 4. 4 minus 2 is 2. Okay, so we're done with those ones. So this is still a non-critical path. Okay, now if we actually look at activity and activity F, float time for F, float time, activity F. So this is the latest time that could be started. So it's in between this and that. So these two boxes. So now here, so remember that that's going to be the latest start time for that activity. The next activity, that's, it's in between these two activities, these two durations. So that's going to be 16 minus the 7 minus the duration it takes for activity and F, which is 7. So 7, that's 14. 16 minus 14 is 2. Again, activity 2 is 2. So the float time for activity F is actually 2. So now if we look at activity E, so activity E, so float time. So let's have a look at float time for activity E. Float time. So this is the latest start time for the activity that's next. So it's in here. So it's in between these two boxes. So that's going to be the latest start time for the next activity will be 9 minus this 3, the starting, well, the earliest start time, minus how long will it take activity E, which is, well, the float time for E, that is. So that's going to give me 7. That's going to be still 2 again. So 2 again. All right. So we've looked at, so we can also look at G, activity G, float time of activity G. So G is, this is the latest start time for, because it's in between and these two activities. So between that and that. So it's going to be the 12 minus 7 minus the duration it takes activity and activity G, I should say. So that's going to give me 3 because that's 9. 12 minus 9 is 3. And what other activity that we haven't looked at? Activity C, yeah, C. Yeah, C. So the float time for activity C will be, okay, now, so that's going to be the 12, which is the latest start time for that activity. So 12 minus the early start time for, the activity, the box before it, and minus the duration it takes for activity C, which is 6. All right, now that's going to give me 10. 12 minus 10 is 2. And activity, the float time for activity B will be float time. Activity B. So that's going to be that 6 here. That's the latest start time, which is 6, minus the early start time, which is 0, minus how long will it take activity B. So that's going to be 2. All right. I hope it's clear. So that's how we calculate the float time on non-critical path. And the critical path float time will be 0. All right.